What's up, Grace Girls? Welcome to the Allow Yourself Grace podcast, where we focus on helping Black women change their lives by discarding negative thoughts, pivoting in the right direction, and shifting their mindset through cultivating a trauma free lifestyle. I'm your host, Courtney Kristen, educator, content creator, life coach, counselor, and mental health enthusiast living in Houston, Texas. I created the Allow Yourself Grace podcast because I wanted to create a space for Black women to share their thoughts, feelings, and stories that make them who they are without fear of judgment. Allow Yourself Grace provides emotional support and encouragement within the Grace Girls community for women in need of non-biased opinions from women other than family and friends. Personal development, self-care, career, faith are among many of the topics we will discuss on this platform. Allow Yourself Grace podcast is here to encourage Black women to live unapologetically and thrive in being authentically who they are and were designed to be, an entire vibe. No topics are off limits. We will cover it all. Now, grab a notebook, pen, sit back, and enjoy the show.
Guys, welcome back to another episode. I have a special guest today. I'm super excited. Y'all know I'm just bringing guests on, and so we have Miss Leah here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. And she is from right here in Houston, Texas, so I'm super excited about that. I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, will do. Like she said, my name is Leah. I am a licensed professional counseling supervisor in Texas. I'm also licensed in Louisiana. My specialties include working with minority women with anxiety, depression, work-to-life balance, family and relationship stress. So if you're struggling to achieve goals or find balance in your life, I got you.
I love that. I love that. Y'all know I'm a mental health enthusiast. Now also, so I've been a school counselor for a little bit. And so
nice.
My original goal was to go into the mental health area. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm like going backwards because now I'm going back into that. And so that's why I'm so excited to have you on as well. Because I'm like,
so needed. Like, do you know how many times I get calls from clients and it's just like, well, you're the only Black therapist that accept my insurance, or you're the only Black therapist that I could find. Like,
yes, ma'am.
They need to see more of us.
They do.
Industry. So I'm definitely like, please,
yes,
go for it, get it done.
And how old are you, Leah? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I'm 34.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. The age makes a difference as well. Because
somebody they can relate to.
Yeah, that you can relate to, because I was seeing a therapist last year, and I went through the list like you said, and I'm looking for somebody that looks like me. And I mean, I did find someone, but she was a little bit older than what I would have liked, you know. And so I think having someone a little bit younger, or, you know, in the middle age, not to discriminate or anything, but
I think clients tell me that because they're more relatable. Like when we use certain slang terms, they don't have to like take part of the time out of their session to like explain what does that mean.
Yes, and it's crazy because it was almost like she was learning from me. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't want it to be like this. So
I have that experience with some clients. Well, not minorities, but like say I've been working newly with like a lot of poly couples. I don't know much about that. So a lot of times I feel bad because I'm like, okay, so how does that work?
Right.
What does that term mean? Like
that's interesting.
It's a new world to me. I've been watching all the shows, educating myself.
Right.
All right, this is like a thing.
But you get the experience of it. So tell us a little bit about your background, like where you're from, you know, kind of how you grew up a little bit.
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My mom moved down here when I was about like 7 years old. So either way it goes, I always say I'm still a Southern Belle, but like, you know, I really say H-Town hottie. But, you know, we're going to keep it cute on here. I actually started off as a criminal justice major because even growing up, they were like, you talk so much. I talked back a lot. So very argumentative as a child. So everybody's like, you're going to make a great lawyer. So I went to school at Sam Houston State University as a criminal justice major. I got really into domestic violence. I worked at a domestic violence shelter, and at that time I started creating, like, at the time I didn't know it was groups, like activities for the ladies, because, you know, whenever you're in a shelter, you don't really get to put on your makeup, do your nails, do facials. Right. So I would get, like, from the donations and stuff, or like go pick up some stuff myself and do like little girls' night and like do like self-esteem boosting. And one of the social workers at the time, she was like, you know, like you should look into counseling. That's basically what you're doing. And I was like, what? I can get like paid to talk and help people. Like, you know, in our community, it's doctor, lawyer, nurse,
engineering.
Like, it was never like presented like, hey, you talk so much, you should be a counselor. It was like, you talk so much, you should be a lawyer. So I started exploring a little bit more. And then also at the time, like, I knew I had to go to law school, but I also wanted to be a juvenile probation officer. But due to my age when I graduated, I was 18, like, a lot of doors got slammed in my face, like, just laughing, like, how you want to be a juvenile probation? So young. You're a juvenile, like, you still don't know. So I was like, okay, I can't get what I want to do, so I'm going to just go back to school and get a master's and see. And ever since then, things just kind of fell in place. I have a diverse experience. I've worked at psychiatric hospitals. I've worked at partial hospitalization programs. I worked with substance abuse. I've worked with CPS for over 3 years. So I have a very diverse experience. And so with that, it helped me develop my niche of like the ideal clientele that I want to work with.
Right. And so I guess that leads me to the next thing. Like, what's your mission and your purpose for what you do? Like, what drives you?
For me as a minority woman, to let other women know it's okay to not be okay. Like, especially as Black women, we're told you have to be strong. You have to keep it together, keep your family together. You already have to work harder at work harder at school. Like, sometimes it's okay to not say that I'm not okay. Right. It's okay to set boundaries with friends. It's okay to set boundaries with families, set boundaries at work in order to preserve yourself. Because again, we stretch ourselves so thin often that we end up taking the shorter end of the stick, and we begin to think that like that's the norm, or that's okay. So, you know, just an overall to empower Black women.
Right. And I think we need more safe spaces and more places where people know, like, hey, the Black therapists are out here. We're available. You know, we're here for you. And I like that you said that. And because in the Black community, like you said, growing up, we didn't know what therapy was.
Exactly.
That wasn't a thing for us.
Or even the stigma of like, you know, what goes on in this house, stays in this house, don't be telling no stranger my business. And ultimately, like, that's what therapy can be perceived as, like telling a stranger my business. So,
and that prevents us from asking for help, which you mentioned just a few minutes ago. We end up getting the short end of the stick because we don't ask for help because, again, nobody's supposed to know my business. I can't tell anybody because my mom said don't tell anybody. I mean, I have to keep everything. I have to be strong. And
you have to think about, like, the things that we've seen growing up is, like, we've seen, I don't know about you, like, we've seen majority of the women stress, working a lot, trying to maintain the family, keeping your spouse happy, making sure your kids do this, you have enough money to do this, like, it looks like a norm to us when really we should be able to have, like, what's the new thing? Our soft girl era, where we don't have to live stress. We don't have to feel like we're trying to get ahead of the curve or keeping up with the hustle and bustle.
Right. And just making sure that we take care of us. You have to take care of you because you can't give anything to anyone else if you don't have the energy, if you don't have the life to give. And so our topic today that I sent you was gaslighting, because I mean, that's like the whole thing. We see it all over. People talk about it. I want you guys to hear it from somebody who's educated on it, though, because we hear all these theories, we see these TikToks, but I wanted my audience to hear from someone who's a licensed therapist that actually knows what the term means. So can you kind of break down that term for us?
Gaslighting is more from the therapist point of view. It's like mental abuse, basically, because what it leads to is like low self-esteem, self-doubt, questioning yourself in different scenarios, your thought process. So ultimately, it's more about the effects of gaslighting that impact your mental and, again, make you begin to question yourself and self-doubt.
Right. And in relationships. And so when people get into relationships, especially women, we get into relationships, this seems to come up a lot, especially with younger people and they're in relationships and they're getting gaslighted a lot, but not realizing it, right? It's becoming kind of their norm. Like they think it's okay, or he loves me, she loves me. He's just saying that, you know, or, oh, maybe what he's saying is true. Like you start to kind of question yourself, right? You start to kind of believe what the person is saying. So can you provide some examples of what that would look like?
Definitely. But I want to pause on that too, because I think that this is like a multi-layered problem, and it's a little bit kind of what we discussed. I feel like this generation, for people, it's not normal to express your feelings or to tell somebody when they've offended you or when they've done you wrong. So therefore, it seems like, oh, you're doing too much. you're overreacting. It's not a big deal, because those are a lot of terms that people who gaslight that they use, that they think. So I think that in this generation, it's wrong to say, like, you know what, I'm sad. It really kind of hurt my feelings when you did that. Like, oh, you're tripping. Like, my intention wasn't to hurt your feelings. So if your feelings are hurt, that's kind of a you thing. Like, you're sensitive. Right. So it's like we're not allowed to express those emotions. So when you do, it's kind of like, well, I guess it isn't normal. Now I'm questioning myself. And these are like forms of gaslighting.
Right, right. And so what do you think leads to that? Like, what causes someone to start to be a gaslighter, I guess? Like, what?
I think that it comes from like internal problems. Mm-hmm. Like if I fear like being rejected, or if I've had past childhood traumas or situations, I want to be in control. I don't want to be perceived as the bad guy.
Right.
Or I don't want to look like I'm doing something wrong, or even identify that like I might be the problem. Like maybe I do have an anger issue. Maybe it's not you being sensitive. Maybe I am mishandling my feelings. That means that I have to place the blame on myself or be vulnerable. And who wants to do that?
Right.
Like,
who wants to
I don't want to be wrong. Yeah. Like, and like accountability.
Yeah, that was my
like I ain't never
word out of my mouth. I was gonna say that accountability. People don't want to be held accountable. They don't.
That's also looks like a form of weakness. Like if I admit that I was wrong or that I messed up, like you might try to use that against me. You might try to play me or throw it back up in my face at a later date.
But I think being accountable is also a part of being vulnerable. And so when you struggle with being vulnerable or trusting people, it's hard to be like, oh, yeah, something's wrong with me. I have an issue. I need to work through it. So that piece is why I really think people need to seek therapy, because those are things that you guys work on when you're in the session. It's like you're building those skills to be able to, you know,
identify the emotion. That's what I start with a lot of my clients before you even get to like expressing them to people. Right. Sometimes again in this society, like we're so used to suppressing our emotions, identifying what's real, or am I being unrealistic? Sometimes you have to sit there yourself and say like, wait, how do I really feel? How did that really make me feel? You know, it's easier to use terms like, oh, you played me. Like that's, okay, what does that really mean? Like you feel like they made you feel less than? Do you feel like they embarrassed you? Do you feel like they made you feel neglected? Like it's hard sometimes to identify those exact emotions that we're feeling.
The communication piece, the communication piece is definitely missing in a lot of relationships. I see it in men a lot because they struggle with voicing how they feel. And when the women try, we try to voice it. It's like, oh, you talk too much. Or, oh, you do it, like you said, you're doing too much. But
I think it's harder for men because I think that, and I'm all about girl power, women can gaslight too. Oh, it's an equal thing, because you have to think about it as a male, especially as a black male, and I even can be vulnerable. I've been guilty with it with my son, like toughen up. You know, like those small things like toughen up. Oh, you look soft, expressing your feelings.
Be a man.
Like, exactly. Yep. So like of course they have more layers that it takes to make it harder for them to open up or express that emotions. Again, not giving y'all no excuses now, fellas. But I feel that they have a lot more obstacles to being vulnerable and communicating. Yeah. So it's definitely a lot harder for them to express because, I can't even identify because based on society, I shouldn't even feel this way. So why am I going to sit in this uncomfortable feeling because I shouldn't even be feeling it? Let me go focus on something else that I can control. Let me go to the gym. Let me go watch some sports. Like
let me go have a drink at the bar. Like let me go do something different. And I definitely agree with that. It can be on both sides. Women do it just as much as men. And so do you think that possible gaslighters, like, are they able to love genuinely? Like, is it genuine when they say they love someone if they're always...
Based on what I just explained, like what causes gaslighting, I don't think that they even have a form of self-love. And so I'm big on, if you don't fully love yourself, it's very difficult for you to even show love or be fully in love with somebody else if you can't love yourself.
And so the steps to getting to loving yourself, like maybe you grew up in a household, where that wasn't normal. Like maybe you were told like, hey, you're ugly, you're not all that, you weren't really loved on. So how do you develop that as an adult?
First, acknowledging it. Like, where does this feeling come from? Why do I feel the need to control or to not allow others to express themselves? Like, where is this coming from? Is it from childhood trauma? Is it from I really just don't know how to communicate? Like, where is that hurt coming from? So, like, not to sound biased, like therapy, or even if you don't want to do that, start journaling some of these emotions and feelings and seeing, do you notice any patterns? Is something not consistent, or is there a theme that keeps reoccurring that could be a problem internally that you need to work on?
Yes, I definitely agree with the journaling, writing things down, because then you can go back and look at what you wrote down maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe, and you can kind of, like you said, see those trends and see like, okay, what do I need to work on? What's something that's occurring more often than I would like, that's not normal, something that I probably need to work on.
That's why I think self-reflection is so big.
It is.
Like, I think that we're so quick to nitpick others, but again, not to the point of like where you're being super hypercritical of yourself, but just a good like reflection of like, what's really bothering me at this time? What needs am I not tending to? Where do I feel a lack at? What is in my control that I can do to improve that?
Do you think it's a person's partner's responsibility to figure that out? Because people will tend to project, like you said, because they don't reflect, but they're projecting like, you should know how I feel. You should know what I need.
Absolutely
but you don't even
not
know what you need, right?
Exactly. Absolutely not. But it is your partner's responsibility to be supportive of you through the journey. Because as you're identifying that, things are going to change. Your reactions might change. They might go through a variation. So it's your partner's responsibility to be supportive, but not to help you identify.
Right. And what's the most common form of gaslighting?
I would say again the emotional manipulation and like the making you question your own thoughts, like that didn't happen that way, or I didn't say that, or you're overreacting, like just kind of making you, because that leads to the self-doubt and also the low self-esteem, because like, well, dang, am I not reacting right, or did I do that wrong, or maybe did that really not happen, am I tripping, like did I not say that, like, so I think that those are the biggest ones, the ones that like attack your thinking and your perception of self.
Yeah, I think women have to really build to get to a I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say, like to build their self-esteem sometimes, because especially as Black women, it's hard for us to walk into a room where it's full of Black women without feeling like we're being critiqued sometimes. And so,
or even sometimes just looked at like as an attraction or something.
Yes. Or we feel less attractive because you see a lot of interracial relationships. And it's not because the Black men are in interracial relationships, because most of us don't care. It's the comments that they make about it, right? Like, oh, I don't date Black women because of this, or I don't. And so I think we have to work, like you said, a little bit harder than everyone else, which is why I'm really advocating for more Black women to be together and be having that space to talk, or having someone to talk to that looks like them, that can relate to what they're saying, because not everybody understands what we're saying, and how we say it, and how we're trying to say it. So,
and we have to deal with that like in so many variations, like trying to fit in at the workplace, trying to fit in with our friend groups, trying to fit in with Instagram, trying to fit in with like the box our family thinks that we should be. Like it's hard because we're trying, but we really just need to figure out like, what do I want in this season? For you? and then an attitude, if you don't like it, then keep it moving.
It is what it is. Maybe you're not fit to be on my journey with me.
This isn't, I always tell my clients, this might not be the season for this friendship. This might not be the season for that relationship. Like, and it's okay. We don't have to have beef to fall off or to distance each other.
Yes. And I think we become healthier when we realize like, it's okay. It's okay.
It is
to
definitely
have
okay.
And not be mad. People take it because you have a boundary like, oh, you're mad. No, I'm not mad.
I love myself so much that I want to protect my peace and not let this stress me out even more. So actually, it's the opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite. And so I think when everybody gets to that healthy spot, then you kind of understand like, oh, okay, I understand. And you don't take it, to heart. But trauma plays a role. I want to kind of get on trauma for a little bit in a lot of things, because what you've been taught and what you saw growing up plays a role with how you interact with everybody.
Definitely.
So I want you to kind of talk about childhood trauma a little bit, how you think that plays a role in work lives, personal
I think we
lives.
underplay how much that childhood trauma goes because it controls how you view the world. Like if your parents talk to you a certain way to say certain things, like that's like the foundation of what you know. So if your parents were super aggressive or actually super nice and enabling, you're going to expect those same things from the world. And that's not really how it goes. And if you've had like sexual abuse or things like that, how you perceive members of that sex who have done that for you is tainted by that experience, or tainted sounds like it has a negative aspect. It's altered by the different life experiences that we have. So I definitely believe that trauma, and then also that can show in different ways. Like you can be trying to overachieve, cause perfectionism. It can cause like substance abuse. Like it can go from a variety of extremes. And the thing is, as a child or even as an adult, sometimes it's even hard to know that that's where it's triggering from, or that's the cause of it, because of the fact that we have such a different view based on our own life experiences.
Yeah, and everybody's experience is different. And so I think when people start to realize like, hey, we all grew up different, we all have different backgrounds, then we start to kind of respect how people move. We start to kind of understand why they interact the way they do, why they do the things they do. Just getting to know people on a deeper level. And I think the divorce rate is so high because people don't take time to get to really know people. Like, let me ask you about your childhood. Like, these are questions I think,
Girl,
and I'm going to ask you.
You know how many clients I had that'll be like in relationships with people, and I start asking questions, and they're like, oh, I ain't asked that. Oh, I ain't know that. And I'm like, what did you ask? Their favorite color? Like, their favorite restaurant? Like, what are we... Because, like, I saw this thing on TikTok, and I've sent it to a lot of my clients. It's like, you should start asking questions on date. Like, how do you act whenever you're frustrated? How do you respond to, like, adversity? What is your communication style? Like, things like this, because these are things that are going to kind of determine the longevity of a relationship.
Y'all hear that?
Because if we handle conflict, we're both explosive, ain't going to work.
It's
if
not
you're
gonna
passive
work.
aggressive and I'm aggressive, or if you're assertive, like we need to start asking more in-depth questions.
Right. And getting to the root of what's really going on with the person. Like, let me see if this is going to work for me. Because you know yourself, or you should know yourself, and what works for you. Because there's a lot of men who, I'm just using this as an example, that grew up in like a home where the man was very authoritative. And so you may be a woman that you don't do well with that. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Maybe your dad used to yell at you. Maybe your dad maybe you had a bad experience. So these are like things you need to know, I think, about a person before you just jump into a relationship.
Definitely. I think that these, because a lot of times, when I tell this to my clients, they think like I'm crazy. Like they're like, we haven't had no arguments, everything's perfect.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, that's an issue.
Right.
I'm like,
That's
you can't really tell, like, if you're, I'm not saying y'all should be arguing all the time.
Right.
But you can't really determine the longevity based on that. Like y'all should want to have a bump in the road. And actually, you know what? We were able to talk through it and work it out and both stay solution focused. Like if we have these bumps in the road, we've traveled together, we've planned together, we've set goals together, we've talked about spirituality, our views of that, what our family foundation was or what we would like it to look like. Like these are some bumps that we have to go through and see before we can determine that, like, hey, this relationship actually has longevity.
Right. And so what would you say the age range is like of your clients? Like your age?
During COVID, I stopped taking adolescents. Like before I would do like 16 or 17. During COVID, they weren't paying no attention. They was on their phones, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So my clientele age is probably from 18 to like maybe 65.
Oh, okay. So you have a broad range.
It is, but it's not. Because I feel like the things that I specialize in, between that age group, we all go through it.
Right.
Adjusting to transition. 18, I'm getting ready to go to college.
Right.
Maybe 40, well now it might be 40, 50. I'm empty nest syndrome, so I'm trying to redevelop myself as a person. 60, 65, I'm retiring, so I'm really trying to develop myself. I'm trying to set boundaries with family members. Or actually, between all the ages, work has me stressed. I don't know or school has me stressed. I don't know how to set those boundaries. I don't know what self-care looks like. I'm struggling to identify goals. So through all those age ranges, like the issues are very similar.
And that's what I was gonna ask. The trends. The trends.
That's what I'm like.
There's
Every
a lot
time
of
I say
trends.
that, like everybody's like, "Wow, that's a big range." But I'm like, we really all going through the same things: breakups, makeups,
Right.
family stress, work stress. Like it's a different adjustments in seasons. Like we're all really going through the same thing.
And I didn't realize that until like I think it was last year. My husband used to say, "Oh, age doesn't matter. It doesn't matter," because I was like, "This person is going through this, but they're this old, and they should be this, and they should be in this space in their life." And I had to really stop doing that because
We don't know what background, because again, how we were just talking about childhood trauma and how it could impact you. Like we don't know what they had to go through to get to this moment. And for them, that might be an accomplishment for them. So we just got to meet people where they are.
Meet them where they are. And that is, I said it, Courtney, you're being like so judgmental. Like, you don't know what their story is. I'm just like, the audacity of me to say you should be this place. When I don't like when people do that to me.
Don't put me in no box.
Right. Don't put
me in no society norms. Because that's one thing I ask my clients, like the whole you should be or I ought to be. My whole thing is, who made that rule?
Right.
Only thing I live by is the 10 Commandments. So, and I still be tripping sometimes with them, So I can't, who made this rule that you have to be married by this age? You have to go straight to college. You have to have a traditional career. Who said that?
Where's the rules? Because
I'll wait. You can
dealing with shit.
That's Siri. I'll wait. And that's what I tell my clients, because that's the first thing. Well, I should have already done this, or I need to do. Who said?
And we're so hard on ourselves, and we have to learn to celebrate where we are, show gratitude for where we are, because when you really think about it, you're like, man, I did a lot.
Exactly.
We don't give ourselves enough credit
do in therapy, and that's something I encourage people. Like, we're so busy looking forward at how much more we haven't accomplished. Like, it's always good sometimes to take a look back, like, dang, look at how far I made it. Look how much I really did do to get here. Like, there was once a point in time where this moment was a dream.
I pray for it, and now
I'm in it, but I can't even bask in it because I'm like, well, you still ain't here.
So you're trying to, because you're so worried about tomorrow or the next day.
So sometimes it's like a good to just look back, like, you know what? You did that, girl.
Pat yourself on the back. And gratitude is so important because we take the little things for granted. Like little bitty things we just,
You took the words out of my mouth. That's like a basic assignment that I give my clients. Like, when you wake up before you go to bed, 3 things you're grateful for or that you accomplished. And it doesn't have to be extravagant. If I'm a teacher, I went all day and I ain't cussed these kids out.
Right.
I made it through the day without without taking a nap. It could be minimal things that you're working on, but just being grateful and acknowledging I'm making progress. And it doesn't, again, have to be I ran a marathon today. I walked on the treadmill for 10 minutes. Go, girl.
Right. Yesterday I did 0, so I did 10 today. It's progress.
Growth.
It's growth. Yes. And I didn't realize I was doing that until earlier this year. I was last year, 2022, I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm so worried about what's next. I'm making all these lists. I'm writing down these goals, which is all great. But dang, I've already done a lot. And I haven't stopped to say, man, you did it. You did great. So just learning to celebrate yourself. And if you have kids, teaching them that.
Yes.
Because if we would have been taught that, it would have eliminated a lot of that stress that we felt like, okay, we have to be strong. We have to get all this stuff done. When in actuality, we're all working at our own pace.
Exactly. And that comes from that childhood trauma too, because I feel like childhood trauma could be emotional, especially being a minority. I don't know about you, but my parents are always, you're the only black girl in the class. So you have to make sure you do better. You have to do get this type of grade. You have to perform at this level, be respectful, this and that. There was always that added pressure.
Yeah.
And then that took me into an adulthood. It took me into college. I always have to do more to be better than my counterparts.
Very true. You have to speak a certain way. You got to dress a certain way. Extra things that you have
present
to do.
yourself. I'm even guilty of that with my son. I'm stop going around looking homeless.
Stop putting the hoodie on, those things.
Oh my God, that hoodie.
And
especially the Trayvon Martin thing, but I really still be don't take the hoodie off.
And it's scary for you because like you said, all the events that have happened in the Black community. But for a kid, it's I just have my hoodie on. You
Like,
know,
it's cold, or
right?
it's
It's
cold.
cold.
I'm like, people might kill you.
Right, and they
Probably
don't get that.
traumatizing him because he's gonna be like not knowing about. Well, he knows of Trayvon Martin what happened, but like, I can't wear a hoodie or I'm gonna die. Like, I'm giving him horrible anxiety already. Like, I'm human too, so But yeah, I'm probably like traumatizing him with the hoodies and death or something.
But I'm sure he understands. You know, like kids now are so more. They have access to more than we had, and they're more mature, more articulate. I'm like, what'd you just say? Like
they're very expressive.
So, yeah, I think they understand a little bit more. When we were told, it was just like we were told. We didn't really know. We were just told.
Shut your mouth and keep it.
And that's it. Like we didn't get to see it.
Kids nowadays, they talk a little too much.
They do.
I mean.
Yeah, we have to be seen and not heard. You know how that
was.
was.
Or even they try to filter it, but they're not of the age where most of them could do that. But some of them could use a nice little filter.
For real. Because
I have a lot of teacher clients, and some of the stuff that these kids be telling them, they could use some filters.
They could. But like you said, it starts at home. It starts with the modeling what you want to see, modeling the behavior you want to see from your children. Of course, they're going to mess up. We all make mistakes.
We're human.
But it's just replacing that behavior with a positive reinforcement. Where is the positive? We don't see that. We see the cursing, the go to your room, get out of my face, that type of stuff.
But also to be transparent, I'm guilty of all of that.
Right.
Again, like I tell my clients, there's no parenting handbook. Like, I don't really know. Like, I'm thugging this thing out like myself. Like, I have a 10-year-old boy now. Valentine's Day, he had like a little girl crush thing. Like, I felt salty, but then I was trying to be like, yeah, but I'm like,
like for real?
Tell her mama that y'all don't even need to do that. Like, so it's like you figure it out on your own, but of course, using your resources, consulting others that you believe have the same parenting style you would like to go towards. But definitely,
you got to figure out your own way.
And again, all these kids are different. So something that I don't know if you're a parent as well.
No, I'm not. But
something that worked for
that
might work for me and my child, like might not work for other kids. Like I had my son in therapy, and he always asked me, "Mom, why can't you be my therapist?" A, I don't like kids. B, we barely are getting this communication right as parent-child. Like I ain't got you. But let's go to somebody. I'll send you to somebody who specializes in communicating with your age group, because I struggle.
And I think it also too is like that confidentiality thing is kind of like, how do you go to mommy mode to therapist mode? Like, I'm not supposed to be judging you right now, but I'm your mama, so I want to say something.
You do, but then it's like
say something. Like I can't say it. So y'all, I agree with that. I would be like so uncomfortable. Gaslighting and narcissists, are they different?
I would say it like this. I would say that gaslighting is a trait of a narcissist. So I wouldn't think that they are the same, because the narcissist is a personality type, whereas gaslighting is again it's like a type of mental manipulation. So it's more of a form, or a method that narcissists would use. So no, they're not the same.
Okay. And I've heard that there's a good narcissist and a bad narcissist. I heard that from a guy. So I wanted to really dive in on that. I was like, I'm going to ask her, is there a such thing as a good narcissist?
With that, because I feel like it has a negative stigma, and I haven't really heard, outside of maybe in a career climbing, but I still don't think that's positive. There really aren't many positive things
about being a narcissist.
Like on paper, it can look like you're doing well, because narcissists have the, people like them. So from the outside looking in, it seems like they're so good. They are typically do very well in their career. So these could be possible CEOs and people are higher up. So on paper, from the outside, it looks good, but then the emotional and internal and the issues and the people they might have to step on to get there isn't usually seen.
All right, y'all heard it from a therapist. I didn't say it. So
I'm gonna have to disagree with there's a good narcissist, but again, on paper, it can look like they're doing well.
Yeah, because I think the stigma around it is just insane right now. People love
it's too freely used. To be honest, I feel like the word is too freely used. I think if we're going to use it like that, it needs to be maybe narcissistic behavior. 'Cause nowadays, like, he's a narcissist. My dad, like, how many clients I had that be like, oh, I was dating this narcissist. Oh, I just realized my dad's a narcissist.
What does that mean?
I'm just like, then they start giving examples, and I'm like, that's not really
a narcissist. That's not really.
So I think we need to, but a lot of people go to TikTok University.
Oh, yes.
And get these examples.
Features.
Yes, and they think they know. Just like, again, another thing, everybody thinks they're ADHD now, and it's like, oh, you're just a little lazy, and it struggle with accountability. Like, you really don't have a diagnosis.
And there's so many people that struggle with that. Like, they want to obtain certain things, but you don't want to do what it takes.
It's like, I get easily distracted. Oh, what distracts you? Oh, I get on my phone on TikTok for 20 minutes. That's a discipline issue. Like, that's not something wrong in your brain that's saying that this is a struggle for you. Like, this is a lack of discipline that you have. So you're not ADHD.
Self-diagnosing. That's a whole nother conversation.
I went to WebMD and they told me that.
Right. And I have all the symptoms. And
because you read them and you just made it fit into your life at that moment. Yeah. And it was like, check, yeah.
Yeah. And I truly believe we have a generation of a lazy people. Because I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why? What's in your way but you? Like, the majority of them, there's nothing in their way but them. Like,
but also I feel like, and I blame more or less, takes however you want, social media. Because everything looks like instant gratification. People don't show the lows. They don't show the hard work. They don't show how many doors were slammed in their face. So you make it look easy. So I'm thinking I'm entitled and it should be easy for me. Like, why did you get to go viral on your video? And I've been posting every day. I should be viral too.
Right.
Like, why do you get to be the person that does the speech? Or even in your field right now, everybody wants to start a podcast.
Everybody.
Like, no credentials, like no actual like niche. Like, I feel like everybody thinks that like I should be able to start a podcast and me and my partner should be like the next Breakfast Club.
That's true. Right? Until they realize how much work it is. They realize how much work it is.
Money.
And money. It takes money.
They don't drop all this nice equipment. Like, I feel like a lot of people, because I feel like they're getting better with showing their L's, but it's only the L's I want y'all to see.
Right.
So I feel like it makes it look easy.
Yeah.
So
it does.
Everybody thinks it should come easy because that's what it looks like on the internet.
True. And I told my husband, I'm like, I want to do a documentary. Like, I want to really start doing the behind the scenes when we're stressed out over here, or all the nights we were up trying to really just figure this stuff out, the equipment, the this, the that, the money, all that. So, because like you said, people need to see the real, because it's like, then you can say, do I really want to do that? Is that something
like everybody
I really
wants to
be
an entrepreneur now? But
yes.
Like, do you know how much that takes? Like, you know how many L's I done had? Like, it's not easy.
It's not.
And it's so many things to juggle and so many things that, like, I didn't know about that I was like,
that you're
like
learning.
How we're talking now. Marketing, like, I just want to be a therapist. Like, I just want to talk to people. I didn't think about that. Oh, now I need to figure out how to work TikTok. I need to figure out how to edit movies in iTunes. I got to keep up with the newest trends. Even a little bit, I got to dance on TikTok. I ain't got no rhythm. Like,
that's me.
It stretches me to areas that I didn't think I needed to know.
It makes you uncomfortable.
And then sometimes
you got to get uncomfortable.
I want to do this. Like, I just want to talk to people. I ain't trying to be dancing and editing videos and trying to be on the internet all the time.
But we can't tell, by the way. Your reels are amazing. I was showing my husband some of your reels, and I was like, this is some of her reels. She makes reels all the time. So I didn't know that about her. She looks good on
content.
Like, but that's what you were just saying. We see her on the internet, right? You don't know. We never would have known that she felt that way if she didn't tell us.
My 10-year-old, I'd be like, how do you edit this video? Or how do I make it fly in like this? Like, I'm on FaceTime with my niece. How I do this? Like, I'm
working out. Y'all hear it.
And that's the thing that people don't see behind
the scenes. They don't see it.
That reel that might be like 30 seconds, it usually takes me about like 45 minutes to an hour.
That's what I was doing before you came. I've been working on mine for like 2 or 3 days, doing some stuff.
All that for
my trip.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
And it's like, you don't be stressed for that hour. Moving things exactly, getting the wording right, making sure I'm hitting all the criteria. Like,
it's a lot. It's a lot. And I see that you're offering life coaching now.
Yes.
So tell us about that, because she has a new 30-day program.
Yes, a new 30 Days of Me. Because of the fact that a lot of people, there's this stigma about wanting to go to counseling. A lot of people want that instant gratification.
Right.
With the 30 Days of Me, and then also most how life coaching goes, it's usually like a program. You set a goal, and then you also put the steps in place to make sure that you hit that goal in that identified time period. Versus therapy, it might take, you're like, I'm depressed. I can't guarantee you in 30 days that you're not going to be depressed.
Right.
However, if the goal is I want to find a career, I want to be able to navigate my next move in my business, my next move in my personal life, that's something that we can write down and make it attainable. And right now, that's what people want. That's what people are looking for. So I decided to do this program. And also, I'm a huge proponent of like self-care and goal setting. So I created a handbook that makes that go hand in hand with the 30-day program to help you to reach that goal, and then also to write it out to hold you accountable. Because if we get to the end of that 30 days, why didn't this happen? Well, did you write down this on this day? Did you do this? But I also keep it very simplistic. It's usually like a little writing that'll take about 5 to 10 minutes each evening or in the morning. So
you're going to be doing groups, or is it individual?
It's individual. You get individual weekly coaching for 45 minutes. So right now I'm only doing life coaching for individuals.
Okay. And so are you accepting, because I want them to know if they're watching, like, are you accepting a certain number of clients? Is there like a time frame?
The life coaching program or the coaching program, I've actually always had on my website. But I've been realizing again that like it wasn't really biting. So I was like, let me revamp it, add a handbook. So it's actually always available. But right now I have it at a discounted rate. So you're saving $150 if you do it for this month. So yes, but I am accepting new clients as far as therapy as well. I accept mini insurance, EAP services as well. So definitely you can look on my page, or always you can DM me. I'm actually a huge proponent of people using insurance and EAP. Okay. Because of the fact that we pay so much monthly, why not use it?
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because I have a couple friends who work for a couple school districts who give, I know they give 8 sessions. With EAP, so yeah.
And I accept a lot of those. Like I see a lot of teachers, because that's a big one. ComPsych, also known as Guidance Resources, that's for a lot of teachers, and also if you work for the city of Houston too as well. And also I'm okay with, I've done plenty of videos of this, but you asked, educating people on how to obtain their EAP services, or even if you have insurance, like I know Cigna does it, you can get EAP sessions from them. Because I also like EAP because it's free for the client, and they get to get a feel of counseling, because it's usually sometimes it can either be 3, 5, or 8 sessions. So it gets us a feel to see if this process is actually works for you, or is this something that you could, see if you like without making a huge investment in it.
Right. And so where can they go? What's your website?
My website is www.leahthetherapist, LIATHE therapist.com.
Okay, awesome. So y'all go. I'm going to have my editor put it on the screen for you guys. And so you guys can go and check it out. If you're looking for a therapist, highly recommend you go. If you're looking for a life coach, like she said, the program's always there, but this is something that she's revamped. And so definitely go and check it out. I recommend therapy for everybody. It really helps.
I even go to therapy. So
therapists need therapists.
Yes, and I see a lot of therapist clients. So yes, definitely. I can't preach this and then not make sure that I'm not taking care of myself.
Right. And so I want to go back to entrepreneurship, because you mentioned that earlier in your transition. So you were working, so you said you did the psych hospital, you did a couple other places.
My transition, when I worked at the psych hospital for about 3 years. Again, it was a corporation. I got paid very well, got treated like shit.
Say that again.
Treated like shit. So after a while, I just very undervalued. Again, I was a minority there. I was young. My ideas weren't really acknowledged. So from there, after I had saved up a nice little money, I transitioned to working for a nonprofit. Of course, you know that pays less. So I was working at the Lighthouse of Houston. They work with people who are visually impaired. I help them create some of their groups and programs for people to go through the steps of grief. So I worked there for about 2 years, and then I went part-time. And then that's when I fully started doing my business, because before it was just after work and on the weekends. So there I went part-time, and I had an incident where I was in the room with a director, somebody who was over finance, myself, and a coworker. And they had made like a racist comment around like Halloween. They said something like, her son had a mask, and she was like, and somebody reported it to the HOA, and she was like, I don't understand. It's just a little white boy walking around with a mask. It shouldn't be a big deal. And then like my heart just sunk.
Wow.
And then so I asked to leave from the meeting, and my boss was like, hey, are you okay? I can tell your mood changed. So for me, it was like, how do you not, like, did nobody else see the issue with this? And so after that, because like I had been dangling with the idea of if I was going to do it or not. Like, you know, that leap of faith. And
there's that
like,
little fear. There's
all right,
faith,
God,
there's
you done showed me, because that y'all gonna say that? No, and like, because at this time, like, it was a very lax job, and that's another reason why I didn't want to quit. Like, I could take my son up there. They had a daycare that he could go to. It was saving me money, a summer program. Like, I was very comfortable. So that was another reason why I was working from like only 9 to 2 every day. Even I was still getting an hour lunch. So I was going to my office up the street seeing clients. Like, it was very lax. But then to see that comment, I was like, all right, God, like, I got you. Like, that was the straw for me. And I was like, and I was the only Black person, like, that worked in that department, the youngest person. It was just like, I'm tired of feeling unappreciated. Like, so I'm gonna go somewhere where I can appreciate myself, and I'm gonna bring in people who I can make sure that I'm showing appreciation and instill to them, like, some of the foundations that I think a lot of corporations are missing.
Right. So that was the last straw for you.
Yes.
So your transition, how has it been? You've been doing it 3 years now?
Yes, I celebrated in December 3 years being
Congratulations.
full-time self-employed.
Congratulations. Thank you. I love that.
Like we say, I can be like on here and say like, yeah, it sounds good, but I had a lot of struggles because when I first quit my job, I had 2 office spaces, but this was right before COVID happened. So I was okay with paying like my house rent and the 2 rents, but then COVID happened and I was out of office. Like, I had just fully furnished a new office and the world shut down. And at that time, I did not want to do virtual. Like, I like being with people. I like the vibes. Like, virtual was never on my radar. I didn't really know much about virtual platforms. So when COVID happened, I had to relearn all that. I had to figure out the ethical terms around that. I had to research these platforms, which cost money to do this as well. I had to prepare my clients for that transition, wondering how am I going to get new clients virtually? Like, how does that impact insurance? So that was quite the adjustment for me, because I was just like, I had only maybe been self-employed for like 2-3 months.
Oh, wow.
So like things were like just getting started, and then the world shut down.
And did it make you question, like, man, did I make the right decision?
Yes. Yes. Because even at that time, I was still in contact with my old boss, you know, just like cordial, like, how are you? So I'm like, oh, how are y'all handling the transition? But then at that time, she was telling me everything was spiraling and going downhill. So I was like, okay. So I'm like, I just had to lean on my faith a lot, but I was definitely like,
like, God, I thought you gave me that sign.
And I'm like trying to figure that out while I'm trying to be a at-home teacher, and I don't.
Oh yeah,
it was a lot. It was a lot to struggle with at that time. So that was a huge transition for me. And again, just realizing the more and more that I have to learn, like, marketing was a little bit easier then. Like, I could just go on Psychology Today or Therapy for Black Girls and find me. Now it's like, oh, I have to build more of an Instagram presence. Prior to like COVID, I didn't TikTok. Like, I didn't know anything about that. Like, I had to revamp and relearn just different aspects of my business. Billing changed whenever COVID came as well. So I had to re-educate myself on that. Like, it was a lot of
being self-taught and researching and doing things on your own. And that's kind of what I wanted them to hear about entrepreneurship, because people do like see it and they glamorize it and they're like, oh, I want to quit. I don't want to work for anyone, but they don't realize the work behind it. Like, there's something that had to be built in order to get there.
And it's a lot of inconsistencies. I went from where I was maybe making like $10,000 a month, and I've had some months where I've only made like $2,000-3,000 a month. So it
changes.
Like, I didn't know how to be. I was going to be my own accountant and money management, and it's like manager. So it's like you have to have like long-term thinking as well.
Right.
So it's like a lot of work
and a lot of researching and learning. You're constantly learning, and so you're taking on clients, like you're supervisor now, right?
Yes, I've been a supervisor for. In June, I actually have to renew my license, so in June it'll be 4 years.
Okay. Do you have any
Not at this time, I do not, but I have previously had associates, yes. Because that's another thing that I realized in like marketing classes, like I have a niche for everything that I want to do. For my associates, I want them to ideally be like minority women. And also I want for them their long-term goal to be entrepreneurship. Because I want to, that's what my supervisor helped me. Like, as soon as I got my hours, I already had my paperwork together to be shipped off to licensing boards for insurance, so that I knew that that was something I wanted to do out the gate. I already knew about billing, because these are all things that they don't teach you in school.
They don't.
And they don't teach you in your program. So therefore, I want that. That's the type of person, that associate that I want to work with, who does that, because I want to give them the best experience. So I wouldn't take on an associate who's like, "Ooh, I want to work with kids." I'm not going to waste your time and take your money.
Because I don't like kids. And not like that, but I don't, she doesn't like working with kids. It's not her specialty.
I would want somebody who would want to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
And then I'm just a little choosy about my associates, because again, a lot of them are younger, and like kind of like that, oh, it's just supposed to happen quick. Like, I want somebody that's like-minded. I feel like I want, because I actually go through an interview process. Like, I want you to interview me just like I'm going to interview you, because this is ultimately a relationship that we have to have for 18 months.
And I think you do have to be selective.
And if we can't do that, like, there's a lot of things like, how prompt are you? How detailed are you? Do you already have a site? Like, these are things I want to know, because again, ultimately, this is an 18-month relationship that I'm putting my license on the line for.
Yeah, and I need to know that you're going to do the right thing. And you're going to follow through. And you're going to represent me well, because
my name is under everything that you do. So, like, that's why I said I'm very choosy with the associates that I do take.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with saying, like, hey, we're not a good fit, but I can definitely provide you with some great referrals. Even with my clients, I'm a little more choosy. And that's one thing I loved about going into private practice, because I can be choosy. Because, like, I worked at a substance abuse facility. I do not do anybody with substance abuse. Like, it's not my environment.
And I like that you're upfront about it. You know, like,
and I have great referrals. Like, I'm not. I'm down for everybody getting help. Right. So I have a definitely a ongoing running referral list of other therapists who I think are great and specialize in some of the things that I don't.
And that's the thing about staying in your lane and wanting to see everybody win. Like, you don't have to have all the people. I can share, because what's for me is for me. And what's for you is for you. And so I think as Black women and as Black people in general, like, when we get to that space, we're going to become greater. Over the past couple of months, I've met some great entrepreneurs that, I mean, they're right here in the Houston area. And I love what they're doing. And it's okay to say that you love what somebody's doing, and
it doesn't take away from your shine.
It doesn't take away from your shine.
It's who you know, not what you know. Not like in a clout chasing way, because you and your character should speak for yourself. But it's all about, like, who you know that can put you indoors with people and to, speak your name when you're not around. Like, I've walked into places, I'm like, oh, you're that therapist girl. I'll be like, yes, that's me.
That's me.
Whoever told you. Shout out them.
Yeah, and it's normally, like you said, it's normally people you don't know. It's normally that people have just discovered you online, or just, saw you and asked you, hey, are you Leah? Those type of things. And it's really sad when people that don't support you like you think they would have. And then, but what helps is, as an entrepreneur, when you meet someone that you don't know, and they've been supporting you, and you didn't even know.
I have so many Instagram people I support, and I ain't never met a day in my life in real life.
That's what I'm saying. And they literally ride for you. They literally go to your page, and they're like, when are you going to post more content? Where's your stuff? I miss your stuff.
Showing love.
And that's what keeps you going as an entrepreneur. So I love that you celebrated 3 years, and that you stepped out on faith, and you're wanting to help other Black women do the same. I love that. And you want to see them be entrepreneurs, because that's something that's not really taught in our
even
community.
When I told my parents, like, there was lots of things thrown at me. Like, they were supportive, but like hesitant. Like, well, you're a mom. What are you going to do about insurance for him? Or what about if you don't make money? And like, so, I had that in the back of my head. But now, shoot, they my biggest supporters. Like, I'll never forget this Christmas. I bought my parents some very nice gifts. It's my dad's first comment was, I guess that therapy money is paying off. And I was like, and you doubted it. Look now how it goes.
But I think it's the unknown, you know.
And again, they weren't taught that it was work a 9 to 5, do this, retire from this company.
I hate that word.
Because when I was doing my experience, because I knew that I wanted a diverse experience, I switched jobs a lot. And my parents were like, well, you're not going to have any longevity. I don't want to be here a long time. So it's okay that if I just build in that company, I'm here for the experience, from what I can gain, the knowledge, and then I'm on to the next. I knew I was building for myself. So like,
and that's okay. And that's okay. And so talking about change, Rue, I want to get there before we end. The change of, do you think it's okay for people to change? Like change jobs, change cities.
I want everybody to change and grow and become uncomfortable. If we stay stagnant and stay the same, how are we going to experience new things?
So do you think being at a job 30, 40, 50 years is something that our generation is, you know, looking forward to, or you think we're just different?
I think that there's a 2-part answer to that, because I feel like there are companies that you could stay with and grow or get a diverse experience where you could transfer and move around. So it's ultimately, what is your career goal? Because like I know that we're hyping up being an entrepreneur, but I don't want to forget that people can do well being on a board of directors, being a CEO of a company. So if that's something that you aspire to do, it might require you to be at that company for that long. Or if something that you want to do is consult for a company like that, it looks great on your resume to have 30 years of experience. I feel like you should stay wherever you're at as long as they're feeling your purpose in that season and your skills are continuing to grow. Now, if we're going to work for 10 years in the same department, not doing anything, you haven't been given any other additional tasks, they haven't invested in you and given you like extra trainings to help build your character or build your professionalism, then no, you keep it moving then. Like that's a good time to move. I feel like once it's no longer fueling you and growing you, that's when you know to move. And that's for me, like that's what I did.
Yeah, and I think people need to hear that. I love that. I think that's going to be her clip, y'all. I'm going to clip that part because I love that she said that, because you can grow as long as you're growing and you're operating in your purpose and you're doing what you love and you're doing what you know God has called you to do, then it's fine. Like I always say this, everybody's not meant to be an entrepreneur. And you know, that's not what she's saying, but what we're saying is we want to make it a norm for the Black community. Like we want that to be an option, because growing up, we didn't hear that as an option. It was like she said, go to school, get your master's, get whatever, you know, like get a good job and retire. But now what? Like now that not what I want to do. What do I do? So we want people to have options. And so that's all she's saying. I love how she worded it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so one of the last things that I want to touch on is coming together as a community and pushing more like from growth. Like if your kids have from childhood, if your kids have ideas and if your kids have goals, like they want to do something, like really, really pouring into that instead of shutting it down. Because I see that a lot. Like people shut down what their kids really want to do and they want to push whatever it is that they wanted to do on them. So maybe you wanted to go to college, but now your kid's growing up and saying, I want to start a business.
I agree, but then I'm a little in between, because I feel like a lot of these kids, they're so detached from reality. And I'm going to give an example with my son. My son, I'm realistic with what he can attain. And I'm going to break it down. It went from like, okay, I want to be in the NBA.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. But reality is, how many people actually get drafted? So it sounds good, and I don't want to be there like, yeah, you going to the NBA, and you don't even make it to, like on the varsity team in high school.
Right.
Like, I feel like
giving options.
But I also break down to him like, okay, let's look at these numbers. So now his whole thing is, well, I'm gonna go to Duke because Duke has a higher recruiting level for the NBA. So like, I'm gonna support you, but I'm gonna also give you realistic things. Like for him, like, oh, well, I want to be a YouTube star. Do you even know anything about like editing and coding? Like, how about you play around on Canva for a while?
And that's exactly what I meant. Pouring into him, because you're saying
about to be a star.
Yeah, but you're saying, okay, you want to do that, but this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. Did you know about this? Did you research this? That's what I mean. Like really seeing.
I'm like,
no, yeah. Let me clarify. But no,
like at one
really,
point
really
he wanted
seeing
to be an artist.
Yeah,
he can't draw at all. It was like stick figures.
She's keeping it real, and I love that. I love
and
that.
I'm like, nah, my boy, like this is nice for leisure. Like, you know, he's always, because again, I'm an entrepreneur, so he always like, well, I'm gonna start a business. Like ever since he was like 3 or 4, and them drawings, he'd be like $20, and I'm like,
I don't like it.
What does it do? Like you only use 2 colors.
Oh my God.
There's no paint.
So
like
funny.
you did. Why is it 20? Tell
but
me why
the world is going to do that. The world is going to do that. And you have to give them what the world is going to do.
So it's like, yes, I'm for like empowering them and supporting their ideas and not shutting it down. But sometimes we got to keep it real, because that's my bigger picture. The world is going to keep it real. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the next Michelangelo and you go to class and everybody looking like, what is that? And then you're going to be like, Mom, why'd you tell me?
You didn't tell me. No, I'm going to tell you.
No, boy, that's not the best drawing.
Right. You need to do better. But like, she hit the nail on the head when she said, I tell him, no. Do you realize the percentage of how many people get, like, exploring the options, you know what I'm saying? Let me tell you about this. Let's do some research. Let me put you around some people.
Like I made him watch Coach Carter, and I'm like, do you see all the stuff they do? You don't even do that. Go outside and run a few days, and then let's talk about it.
Because I swore up and down I wanted to be a nurse. Baby, nobody could tell me anything. And then I got to nursing school, and I was like,
reality check.
No, this is not for me. And my dad was like, are you sure this is not for you? Know, like going crazy. And I'm like, no, it's not for me. I don't want to do it. But you know how much money they make? I don't care. It's not for me.
Exactly.
So, and I think if I would have had an experience sooner where I could have went to the hospital and kind of saw what they were doing, or maybe, you know, had the opportunity to do some other things, I would have probably been like, oh no, I don't want to
early
do that.
on, this is not for me.
So those things, you know, that we want to do. And like she said, growing up, I didn't know that being a counselor was a thing. I didn't know that was a job where you can actually make money, where you can actually like do things. Like, what?
That was mind blown. I was like, really? Tell me more.
Get paid to talk.
Because she was a social worker, and I wasn't even really familiar with her role either until she educated me on that.
Wow.
Because then it had to break down to like, well, what's the difference between a social worker and a counselor? Because she was trying to see like which path I would be more interested in. But yeah,
right. There's another. So there's like on ComPsych, there's therapists, but there's also is that a social worker too?
The LCSW.
Yes.
Yes.
What is that? So what do they do exactly? Because I didn't know.
Well, nowadays
exactly
they're usually known for like assessments, doing things like more case management and things like that. But now with mental health becoming a thing, they could also provide talk therapy. But majority of them like do case management and assessments.
Yeah, I saw that, and I observed a lady with one of my friends because she was doing some homework for her program, and I'm like, this is all she does? Like, oh.
But you have to go through so much training to be able to do those assessments. Like, that's one thing. Like, there's always this debate between LPC and LCSWs. Like, there's a lot of assessments that they can perform that I do not have the criteria to be able to perform.
Oh, okay, I got
so
you.
it's a little different.
So that's the difference. That's the difference. Okay, because I was like really trying to understand it, and I'm like, well, what's the difference? And so that's
they're able to perform more assessments and do different things that like we can, but just like that, like we do different things that they can't do as well.
Okay. So what's next for Leah, the therapist?
Right now I'm enjoying doing things like this, doing podcasts, because I'm pro getting information out there about mental health, especially to our community, to attempt to normalize it and provide education on accessing the resources. So right now, just kind of doing that. I have a few events coming up, so just trying to keep myself busy.
Okay. And are you accepting new clients?
Yes, I am accepting new clients.
Okay. So she is, guys. Go to her website. Again, I will have the website. I will have all of her info on the screen, her IG, where you can go and follow her.
Follow me.
And this is the portion that most people love, because now you get to ask me questions. So I give people opportunity to ask me anything they want to ask before we end.
Okay. How did you get into education?
I got into education right after college because I was a little confused about what I wanted to do, but I had this degree.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I got this degree. Like, I got debt. Like, what am I going to do? And so I ended up getting a job as a assistant teacher just to see, if I liked it or whatever. Then I decided to go ahead and get certified.
Okay.
So, because my degree was not in education, it was I had have a bachelor's in health and a minor in psychology. And so then I went there, got in, and I loved it. And so I started teaching. I taught for 8 years, and then I started to be I went for counseling, and I didn't take the exam.
Okay.
I did everything, didn't take the exam, and just said, oh, I'm just going to taught, and then I got into school counseling, and now I'm going back to what I originally wanted to do.
Okay.
Which is why I love this interview, because I'm getting my questions answered.
Yeah, so you can always hit me up and pick my phone whenever you need anything.
I definitely am. I've been pushing it off, and then I'm like, no, this is the year I'm going to go ahead and just finish. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into education, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I always was like really good with kids. That was nothing. But now I'm more intrigued by what's going on with adults these days.
Yes.
So childhood trauma, that kind of stuff, I'm excited about that. Okay. So that's kind of.
And my last question, what does self-care look like for you?
Child, that looks like going to get a massage, getting my nails. I like to get my nails done. I change my hair a lot. So I have like so
Black
many
girl magic.
Yeah, different hairstyles. My husband's phone recognizes me as different people all the time. But yeah, I like doing stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
yes.
That's my self-care. And reading. I'm getting back into reading. Trying to read more books.
Me too. Try is the key word. Try.
It's hard.
Because my brain be going.
It's hard to just sit down and just like.
'Cause I'm looking at that pile of laundry that needs to be done. I could go actually maybe season this meat real quick to have to prep tomorrow. Like my mind be everywhere.
And I'm trying not to listen to audio because I'm like, no, I need to read this book.
I've been thinking about transitioning to audio to see how that goes for me for like the car rides and stuff like that. So I've actually been thinking about transitioning.
You should try. I tried it, and I was listening to it in the car. But then when I got home, I would like just highlight in the book where some of the stuff I caught as I was writing. But it helped me finish a lot of books.
I think I'm gonna try.
Yeah, I just got Audible and used that. It's like $16 or something a month, but. Okay. Yeah, I think I might go back because that's the only way I was finishing. Because like literally, I would not listen to the radio. I would just listen to my book.
I'm thinking about just doing either more podcasts or things like that. So
I have a lot of good people that I follow too for the podcast too, like mental health, safe spaces for women, things like that, which really pushed me to start mine because I'm like. I have these conversations all the time with my friends and stuff like that. And so I'm like, let me just start my own thing, So I'm enjoying it. Okay. It's kind of like therapy, really.
I'm here for it, yes. Because I do these emotions out, you're talking about it, and this is your form of expression. Yes. This is maybe your space to be vulnerable.
It is, because I'm very private. And so now I'm getting there.
Okay, I'm here for it.
I'm getting there. Any other questions?
No, but thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And you guys go follow her. Her information will be on the screen. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Bye.
Well, guys, that concludes our episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Allow Yourself Grace podcast. For additional information about today's episode, please click the link in the show notes below. To learn more about our Grace Girls community and other resources we have to offer, head over to www.allowyourselfgrace.com. Until next time, Grace Girls, I love you all, be blessed, and continue to strive for success.